Thank you, second gentleman, Mr. Emhoff. Speaking of the White House, Act to Change was first launched as a public awareness campaign out of President Obama's White House initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders back in 2015. We have since become a national nonprofit, continuing our work to end bullying and empower young people. Back in 2015, one of our very first supporters was Jeremy Lin. Over the years, he has continued to uplift our work, and I am so excited that he is here with us today. Jeremy needs no introduction. He's an NBA champion, an Asian American advocate, and he works tirelessly through his foundation to support underserved youth. So please join me in welcoming Jeremy Lin.
What's up? Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Thank you for being here. Hi, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. We have a very similar all-white backdrops. I like it.
Backdrop. Yeah, here we go. Jeremy, I mentioned that you're a tireless advocate for our communities. I was wondering if you could tell us just a little bit about your own foundation and some of the things that you're seeing on the ground with respect to where our Asian American communities are today.
Yeah, I mean, my foundation is centered around empowering Asian American youth. And so, our thing is just empowering them, leadership development, giving them a chance to be the best people, the best individuals they can be. And so for us, what we've seen on the ground, I mean, first off, we've seen there are a lot of systemic issues, right? And we can even see with the funding, that 0.2% goes to AAPI. 0.2% of nonprofit funding goes towards AAPI organizations. But what we're seeing on the ground is that people are fighting. People are trying to help each other through the pandemic, through everything that has happened. There are so many amazing organizations on the ground doing amazing work. And that has been so encouraging for me to see, to be able to be here right now in the Bay Area and seeing my grantees and seeing the work they're doing has been really inspiring.
I really appreciate you lifting that up, because I think one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is that so many organizations on the ground have been tasked with doing the hard work of really uplifting our communities. And I know at Act to Change, we've been partnering with so many other organizations as well. And so I really appreciate you just talking about that so succinctly. Speaking of the work that you are doing, why do you think a day like today, a National Asian American Pacific Islander Day against bullying and hate, is so important, and particularly with what's going on for young people, young Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders today?
I mean, right now, a lot of the headlines, we'll see certain things about people being attacked and things like that, and those are terrible situations. A lot of them are racially charged or hate crimes, those things like that. And that's one thing that needs to be addressed. But I think something that maybe isn't even talked about as much is even beneath all that or underneath all that, how is this affecting the psyche, the mentality of a lot of Asian American youth being seen and targeted and told that they don't belong or that they're a foreigner, or, how can this affect them? And so even yesterday, we had a great conversation with somebody who's working for the government and represents New York. And she said the biggest thing that Asian American youth need is confidence. I mean, that's mind blowing. There's a lot of things, from, you could say meals, you could say education, you could say tutoring. I mean, she said confidence and mental health services are two of the most important underlooked things that are happening. And so when we talk about the effects of bullying, the effects of what we're seeing in the news, like, these things need to be addressed. And that's why it's so important when you talk about anti-bullying, when you talk about mentality. I mean, it comes back to that.
Yeah, when you thank you so much for uplifting that, because mental health is such a big part of the work that we're doing, and also like what we need to be doing as a community in terms of where we're meeting young people. For some of those kids out there who might be struggling with their confidence levels right now, do you have any words of advice or things that you would want to share?
I mean, my thing has always been, don't let somebody who doesn't know you tell you who you are. And I struggled a lot with that when I was younger. And I would get on the court and some guy I never met would say something to me and it would make me feel bad or worse about myself or worse about my skin color. And I realized he doesn't know anything about me. I've put in the work. I've done everything to become a great basketball player. I know who I am. I know what I've done. And I know the people that love me. And I'm going to dive into my identity and who I am and who the people around me know I am, versus what somebody else who doesn't know me is saying about me. And the worst part about it is, what I kind of realized is, a lot of people that bully or say harmful things, usually it's because they are hurting themselves inside. And that also allowed me to flip things around where it's like, hey, I actually have compassion towards even a bully or somebody that may say something ignorant.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. There's so many young people that I know look up to you, and those words are going to mean so much to them to hear. Jeremy, as you know, this day, this National AAPI Day Against Bullying and Hate, always lands on May 18th because it is the birthday of Vincent Chin, and we wanted to honor him on this day. Today would have been his 66th birthday. Why do you think it's important for young people, for all of us really, to know the story of Vincent Chin and also to have a better understanding of Asian American and Pacific Islander history?
Because I think, history is full of lessons, and I mean, we can always look back in history to draw inspiration, to learn, or even to see the mistakes and to change. And that's what history is. One of the best parts about history is people have lived certain lives before us. And I think that's one thing about Vincent Chin. I mean, to understand that story of a Chinese man who was beaten to death and called racial slurs and assumed to be Japanese and part of, blame for the Japanese auto industry thing, like, and then to get off for these two people to get off, like, and never serve jail time. I mean, this Vincent Chin, that moment is just something that like will resonate it will change the course of history, because it started a lot of the Asian American activism, and it started, or at least it was a turning point or a crucial point. And so for us to be able to understand that, like, Vincent Chin is not here to be able to see what it looks like today, but he will always be remembered for somebody who was a trailblazer and somebody who did something that was historic for Asian Americans and hopefully for the nation, because honestly, the nation really needs to, that's the direction that we want to go in terms of making sure that we do treat each other right and with equality.
Yeah. And I know, it's such an interesting time because I feel like we're seeing some of history repeat itself in a lot of ways. And yet I think there's so many things that we've learned as a community through the Vincent Chin story about coming together and about galvanizing. And I know that your foundation is doing this kind of work. I know we at Act to Change are trying to do this work. So hopefully a day like this does have impact on young people, lets them know that they're not alone and that we can rewrite that history. So Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us. Any last words to our audience at home?
No, just thank you for what you're doing. Good to talk to you again. Thank you, Act to Change. I'm excited.
Thanks, Jeremy.